When Americans talk about the birth of their country, we almost always reach for the same word: revolution. Revolution, a clean break from the past, a dramatic rejection of tradition, a moment where everything old was swept away and something entirely new took its place. But what if that word hides more than it explains? What if the American founders themselves would not have recognized that description? And what if misunderstanding that single word has distorted how we understand liberty ever since? To understand the American founding, we first need to understand what it was not. The word we get wrong. Most revolutions begin with a belief that the past has failed completely, that inherited institutions are beyond repair, that tradition is an obstacle rather than a resource. Revolution, in this sense, means starting over. Revolutions assume society can be rebuilt from theory, that human nature can be reshaped if the right ideas are applied and the right people are placed in charge. History becomes something to overcome, not something to learn from. In these moments, restraint is treated as weakness. Limits are seen as inconveniences. Power is trusted because it is believed to be temporary, benevolent, or morally justified. The American founding did not begin with those assumptions. It did not start with confidence in power. It started with skepticism. What revolutions usually are? Revolutions typically rely on a dangerous hope that power itself is neutral and only corrupt when held by the wrong hands. If the right people are in charge, the thinking goes, concentrated authority can be used safely. This logic justifies extraordinary power in extraordinary times. Emergency measures, sweeping mandates, broad authority exercised in the name of progress, equality, or justice. But history shows a consistent pattern. Power gathered for noble reasons rarely remains limited. Temporary authority has a way of becoming permanent. Exceptional measures quietly turn into normal practice. Revolutions replace structural restraint with moral confidence. They trust intentions where they should demand limits. And once restraint is gone, there is very little left to stop power from expanding further. The American founders understood this pattern well, and they were determined not to repeat it. What the American founders believed. The founders began with a far less flattering view of human nature. They did not believe people become wiser, fairer, or more virtuous when given unchecked power. They believed the opposite. They assumed ambition would always exist, that self-interest could never be eliminated, that factions would form, compete, and collide, and that no amount of education or goodwill could change these facts permanently. Instead of trying to perfect human nature, they designed a system to manage it. Instead of trusting rulers to behave well, they assumed rulers would need to be restrained, not because they were uniquely corrupt, but because they were human. This belief runs through the founding generation. Power must be divided because it cannot be trusted whole. Authority must be checked because it will always push outward. Liberty must be protected not from villains alone, but from ordinary people acting in their own interest. That assumption shaped everything that followed. Restoration, not reinvention. The American founders did not see themselves as inventors of new rights. They saw themselves as defenders of old ones. Rights, in their view, did not come from governments. Governments existed to secure rights that already belonged to the people. This is why English common law mattered so deeply, why colonial charters were constantly cited, why legal tradition carried moral weight. The founders believed liberty had a history and that history deserved respect. Even their grievances were framed this way. They were not claiming new privileges. They were arguing that existing rights had been violated. Representation, due process, trial by jury. These were not radical demands. They were inherited expectations. The Constitution reflects this mindset. It does not read like a manifesto. It reads like a blueprint, procedural, constraining, often frustratingly dull, and intentionally so. It was designed to restrain power, not unleash it. Why this distinction matters. If liberty is inherited, it must be stewarded. If it is restored, it must be preserved. But if liberty is invented, it can be redesigned, expanded, revised, or replaced entirely. When liberty is treated as a product of will, power becomes the tool to reshape it. When liberty is treated as something older and higher than government, power must be limited in order to protect it. This distinction changes how societies approach reform. It determines whether institutions are improved carefully or discarded recklessly, whether restraint is seen as a safeguard or an obstacle. The American founding chose restraint over reinvention, process over passion, structure over impulse, not because the founders distrusted liberty, but because they understood power. The American founders did not believe they could finally get power right. They believed no one ever would, and so they designed a system that assumed failure was always possible. They did not try to create perfect leaders. They created imperfect institutions that could survive imperfect people. Liberty was protected not by trust, but by design. That choice places a responsibility on every generation that follows. Liberty is not self-executing. It does not survive on slogans. It endures only where restraint is respected and limits are defended. The American founding was not a revolution against human nature. It was a recognition of it. And that may be its most radical idea of all. The fight for liberty never ends. It only changes hands.